To follow along with the written version of this pattern, as well as a downloadable PDF version, use the link on screen now, in the description below, or by going to clubcrochet.com/castle. Hey there, it's Louie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a castle. You can also use this same exact pattern to make a sand castle, which is this month's Club Crochet Pro kit. So if you are a Club Crochet Pro member, you'll be getting a kit this month with all the materials to make a sand castle and a little beach ball for the summer. But in this video, we're going to be making a regular castle because it's the exact same tutorial with some color changes. So I thought it'd be a little bit better to do the video of the castle instead of the sand castle. Really quick before I get started, this pattern is actually not originally designed by myself. It's designed by another Amigurumi artist that goes by Ravencraft Designs. You can find links to her stuff in the description below. I reached out to her to do a little collaboration pattern, and she came back with this amazing castle pattern that I just thought was so cool. And then I just did a few little changes here and there. I added a little drawbridge that I think is pretty cool. It actually works. See, so you can have a little drawbridge, and then there's a little string on the back. You can pull it closed. So we're going to be learning how to crochet all this today. And again, if you want to check out more of Ravencraft's designs, you can check out links in the description. You might recognize her pattern writing because she has done a pattern with us before. She did the milkshake pattern. So yeah, she's a veteran of Club Crochet at this point. Thank you so much, Ravencraft, again, for helping with this pattern. Okay, so for this pattern, you're going to need the following materials. I'm using all worsted weight yarn in 100% cotton in the colors gray, one color. I'm going to be using blue instead of red in this pattern, and then brown for the drawbridge. If you're going to be making a sandcastle, all you need is one color, just jute. That's the name of this color, jute, or ecru is another color that works really well for sand. Because I'm using all worsted weight yarn, I'm using a size G 4mm crochet hook. You can use any kind of crochet hook as long as it works with the yarn that you're using. I like using cotton worsted weight yarn because it's kind of moldable, which is important for making these the edges of all the castle parts here. If you use a more flimsy yarn, these might not stand up as straight as they do with cotton yarn. I'm also going to be using a little tiny pin like this and a little piece of felt, colored felt. You can use blue or red. I think we're going to be using blue in this pattern to match the spire of the castle. And so if you're making this with kids in mind, probably don't include the pin. That might be too dangerous for kids. And then the last thing you'll need is a pair of scissors and a darning needle. I suggest using a crimped end darning needle like this. It'll help you get into all the stitches that are hard to reach, which is going to be pretty important for adding detail to this pattern. Let's see. Oh, and then of course you'll need some stuffing. Okay, well, this pattern is made in a bunch of different parts that are put together, and what's really cool is you can put them together in different ways to make your castle look differently. So to get started, we're going to be making just these skinny towers. So to do that, we're just going to need our main color, our gray yarn. Okay, so for the skinny towers, you're going to want to make either 2 or 4 of these skinny towers. If you want to make, you can just do 2 skinny towers and just do 1 on either side. I like using 4 because it kind of sits up a little straighter and looks a little bit more like a classic castle in my opinion. But you can do either one. You can even make a whole bunch of them and sew them all together to make a big circle, or arrange them in any kind of way that you'd like. So we're going to be using our main color, which is going to be our gray yarn here. And for the skinny tower, we're going to start with a magic loop. Now I'm going to start with this new method that I've been using for a magic loop. I pinch it with my index finger and thumb and go over. Instead of going under like that, we're going to go over your fingers. And we're going to cross over that yarn like that, okay, to make a little X. And then grab a hold of the yarn with your last 2 fingers. You can kind of pull them in like that if you'd like. Now on the back of your hand, you should have 2 loops. you can go under the first loop, grab a hold of the yarn of the second loop, and we're going to kind of flip it under. And see how I do a little twist to keep it in place? Now we can yarn over with that same end and pull that through the loop, which will create a chain. You pull this off your finger now. This is a little bit easier way to do a magic loop. I'm going to be working on a video soon showing the different ways to do a magic loop and the pros and cons to each. But for this pattern, we're just going to be using this method. Okay, so for round 1, once you have your magic loop, we're going to single crochet 6 times into it. Okay, so we're just going to go under the magic loop, yarn over and pull through the loop, yarn over and pull through 2 to do a single crochet. We're going to do 6 of those total. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now you can close that magic loop up a little bit. And what we're going to do for each one of these rounds is something that I usually don't do in my patterns, but is really important for this pattern to make everything go up and across equally so that you have a very flat base and flat top of your bases, or I mean of your towers. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your crochet hook to finish round 1. We're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made. So if you count back 6 stitches, it's the easiest way to find it. We count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's going to be right there. Let's get a crochet hook under those 2 loops, and then you yarn over and then slip stitch. So we're going to pull under that and then under this loop here. Okay, that'll be a slip stitch. And that will finish up round 1. And you can see that makes it more of a full circle. I don't normally do this in my amigurumi, but it is very important for this pattern to do that for each of these rounds. Okay, to like finish up each round, I mean. All right, so for round 2, we're going to chain 1. You do not need to turn around. You can just keep working around in a spiral this entire pattern. And we're going to increase into each stitch around. Now we're going to actually start with the stitch that you slip stitched into, and then when you get back around, we're going to skip that slip stitch that you made in your previous round. So we're going to start by working into that same stitch that you slip stitch into, so right here. I'm going to yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2 to make a single crochet. We're going to do an increase into this every stitch, so including this one. So there's 1 single crochet, and there is 2. There's our first increase. Increase in each stitch. That should be 6 increases total. Here's our second increase. There's 1 and 2 for a second increase. And this is going to bring you up from 6 stitches to 12 stitches around. So you should have 12 stitches by the end of round 2 here. I'm coming back around here. Here's going to be 9 and 10. And here's our last 2 stitches, 11 and 12. Make sure to keep count so you don't accidentally crochet into this slip stitch, because this last stitch right here, it'll look like another single crochet, but it's actually the slip stitch from the round before. So you don't want to work into that. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made in this round. Okay, so that's going to be right here. Go into that stitch. We're going to slip stitch 1. Like so. There you go. And that'll be the end of round 2. Okay, so for round 3, we're going to chain 1 yet again. And again, we're going to start by working into this same stitch that we slip stitched into. And into each stitch all the way around, we're going to single crochet. But we're not going to be crocheting under both of these loops. Instead, we're only going to be working into the back loop, okay? So the loop furthest away from us. Now, for the first stitch, that can be kind of confusing. So what I like to do is I take my needle and I find this first stitch, which is going to be right here. So under both of those loops is where we would normally go, but we only want to work into the back one. So we're going to only work under this back loop here. Okay, so we just want to get a crochet hook under that back loop. Like this, and we'll just single crochet just like that. Now we're going to do that into each stitch all the way around. So there's 1 single crochet, 2, 3. You see what we're only working into those back loops. 4. There should be 12 all the way around. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and here is our final stitch right here. There is our 12th stitch. Okay, and that'll be each stitch all the way around for the end of round 3. Now to finish up round 3, we want to do the same thing that we've been doing for each round. We're going to skip the slip stitch, the final slip stitch right here. That again looks like a stitch, but it is not a stitch. Keep that in mind. And we're going to slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made right there. And we'll just slip stitch into that. And this is going to make a very even, each of our rounds should be an even distance. Okay, so there's not going to be any change in the rounds. So we'll have a very clean, like bottom to top kind of thing, and a very flat top. See how that top is really flat. Okay, so that's the end of round 3. Let's get our needle out of the way here. For round 4, we're just going to be doing, actually for rounds 4 through 9, that's 6 rounds total, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. 6 rounds in a row, we're going to be just doing the same thing, which is to chain 1, so yarn over and chain 1. And then we're going to single crochet into each stitch all the way around, and then slip stitch to join. We're starting into the same stitch that we slip stitched into at the end of round 3. So right into here, we're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. And we're just going to single crochet into each one around. So there's 1, 2, 3, oopsies, we didn't get under both those loops that time. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and here is our 12th stitch. And again, there is our, this one looks like a stitch, but it is our slip stitch. So just, I know I've been saying that each round, but I seriously want you to keep that in mind because it is easy to forget that. Okay, so we're going to skip that last slip stitch. And we're going to slip stitch 1 into the first single crochet that we made right here. Okay, just like that. And we're going to repeat that round for 6 rounds total. So there's our first of our 6 repeats. So let's do a second one and then I'll continue on. So we're going to chain 1, work into the same place that we just slip stitched into, and single crochet. And then we're going to continue single crocheting into each stitch. So there's 1, there should be 12 all the way around. And then when you get to the end, we'll just slip stitch into that first one, first single crochet that we made into each round. So we're currently on round 5, which is the second of our 6 repeat rounds. Okay, almost around here. And this is going to be our last one. We're skipping that slip stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch into that first single crochet. You can tell it's a single crochet because you can see a little V under it, whereas this slip stitch doesn't have that little V under it, see? And it'll be a little taller. See how there's like a little boop? Okay, so slip stitch into that first one. This is our second of our 6 repeats. So we're going to repeat that 4 more times so that there's 6 rounds of single crochets all the way in a row. Don't count this one as one of your 6. This was round 3 where we worked into the back loops only. That does not count in our 6 repeats. So we will count up from there. So disregard this round, and then we got 1, 2, and there'll be 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I'm going to continue this, and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so this is going to be my last single crochet for round 9, our last round of our repeats. And we're just going to slip stitch into this first single crochet that I made in round 9 to finish it up. And to count up, just to show you how to count it, if you count all these V's from where we've slip stitched, we should count 6 down and then an extra one for the back loop. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's our first one. That's round 3 right there. So round 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We finished our round 9. Okay, so for round 10, our final round of our skinny towers, but, well, kind of our final round of our skinny towers. We still need to do the edging of the castle. We're going to be chaining 1, again, just like before, and we're going to be working into these back loops yet again. So going into the back loop of each of the stitches, we're going to start in this first one right here, right, like that. And this time we're going to be doing a decrease. And I don't mean an invisible decrease or a single crochet 2 together. I mean a sharp decrease. So to do that, we're going to be into this back loop. We're going to yarn over and pull through like we're doing a single crochet into that back loop. And then we're going to go into the next stitch right here and pull a second loop through. And I should have 3 loops on the hook. 1, 2, 3. Pull that last loop through the 2 on the hook, like so. And that'll be a sharp decrease. It's really going to flatten your piece. Okay, so there's 1. Again, we're going to back loops only. So there's boom, and there is second one right like that, and then pull it through. And you're going to do a decrease into each stitch around. There should be 6 decreases total. So there's 1, 2, back loop, pull through. 1, 2, and pull that 2 through. And just a few more. 1, 2, through. And here's our last one. 1, 2, and through. It's best if you do like a little scoop to get through that last one. Okay, so now you should have 6 stitches around. We can cut the yarn. You don't need a very long end at all. That's probably just fine. And we're just going to pull that all the way through your piece like this. Okay? So you can kind of see, let's count our stitches just so you can see how to count the stitches here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? So these are going to be our 6 stitches that we're going to use to sew this closed. Now, before we sew it closed, we do want to stuff it up a little bit. So grab some stuffing. You don't need very much. This is probably way more than enough. You just need a little bit because you definitely don't want this overstuffed. I'm just going to use the back of my crochet hook to help me get my stuffing into my piece. That's why I really like using a crochet hook that has either a rubber or a plastic that kind of grips the stuffing, helps stuff it closed. Okay, that's almost good. Let's add just a little tiny bit more, like that much. See how that goes. Okay. Now to finish up these skinny towers, let's make sure we like how much we're stuffed up right now. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so to finish this up, we're just going to sew this closed. So to do that, we'll take this thread. It's got these little hairs. We'll grab this thread, thread it onto a needle, and we're just going to sew this closed. So we're just going to count up 3 stitches. So go from our first stitch, which is going to be right there. It's kind of hard to tell. If you count back, actually, so count back from our first V right here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to go through the top of 6. And I come out across from it like that. And then we're just going to keep going around. So there's 1, 2, like that. And I'm kind of just making an asterisk. I'm going over my ends that I sewed together. Now, if you want a better tutorial for how to sew pieces closed, I actually have one available. You can just go to clubcrochet.com/sew closed, and I explain it with a little bit more detail. Now I'm just going to come out through somewhere on the side. It does not really matter where. And I'm going to come back down through where we came out and back down through the very bottom of our piece. I'm going to kind of work it into the bit that we sewed together, create a knot, just pull that through, pull it tight, and then we're just going to cut the end right here. Okay. All right. So now we have this little like a column. It's kind of like a little cylinder, you know. And what we're going to do is we need to add our castle edging to the edge of the top of our little cylinder here. So all you need to do for that is we need to take our crochet hook and grab a little bit more of our gray yarn. And what we're going to do is you're going to create a slip knot with your gray yarn. You don't need too long of an end. That's probably just long enough, just like that. Create a little slip knot. And what we're going to do is we'll take our piece. Oopsies, dropped our slip knot. We'll take our piece and we'll find the end of our round, it looks like round 3. So we're going to go right at the end here. So you can see all these front loops, all this edging loops right here. We're going to go into the first one right here. You can tell it's the first one because it doesn't really look like the others. It kind of like sticks out a little bit more obviously. So we're going to go in, get with your crochet hook pointed towards the center of your piece. Go into that last one right there. And we're going to take our slip knot, put it on our crochet hook, and we're going to pull that through that front loop. Okay. Now, for the castle edging, once you have it pulled through the first front loop, we're going to, working into each of the front loops all the way around, we're going to do this little repeat. And the repeat is, we're going to chain 1, we're going to half double crochet 1 into the next stitch. So yarn over, go into the next stitch right here. Don't forget we're working into these front loops. Yarn over again and pull through, and then yarn over to pull through all the loops to complete the half double crochet. And then working, and then we want to chain 1. And we want to slip stitch into that same half double crochet right here. Into the same stitch that you half double crocheted into. So just like that. Okay, and it'll create this like little tiny kind of like column there. And then you want to slip stitch 2 into the next 2 front loops only. So right here we're going to go 1 slip stitch and 2 slip stitches. Okay, and we're going to repeat that all the way around. So let's do our second repeat. There should be 4 repeats total for these skinny towers. So again, that is yarn over and chain 1. Then working into the next front loop, we're going to yarn over and do a half double crochet into this next one. And then we're going to chain 1 and then slip stitch into the same place you half double crocheted into. Okay, to create the little edging there. And then we're going to slip stitch 2 into the next 2 front loops. There's 1 and 2. Okay, so you can kind of see how it's making these little edging. Let's do it 2 more times. Chain 1 into the next stitch, half double crochet 1, then chain 1 into that same stitch, slip stitch 1, into the next 2 stitches, slip stitch. So slip stitch 2, 1 and 2. Okay, and now we're on to our last repeat here. Chain 1, half double crochet 1 into the next stitch, chain 1, slip stitch into that same stitch you half double crocheted into, like that, and then slip stitch 2. 1, and you can see this last one is right there. 2, and it should match up pretty perfectly around. Now to finish up these little spire things, all you got to do is we need to cut the yarn. You don't need to leave a very long end there, and just pull it all the way through. We'll take this end that you just pulled through, thread that on your needle, and we're going to go around the first chain that you made. You can kind of see the first V right here. We're going to go around the back of the first V like that, and pull that through. And now we're going to go back into where this end of the yarn is coming out. Go back into that same place. So here's where it's coming out. Go into that. And we're going to go into our piece. Oops. Just kind of hide in a couple stitches there. Go into your piece and come out a few stitches down through a hole like that. And pull it somewhat tight. Try not to get too tight there, but that's probably good. Now take your other tail end. This is the first tail end from the slip knot that you made. Thread that on your needle. And we're going to go into the same spot right here. And we're going to come out through the same stitch that you came out with the other tail end. Like that. Make sure to pinch all those guys up. And now all you have to do is double knot these. 1, 2. And we can cut the double knot nice and close like that. Throw that to the side. And then take the back of your needle and just kind of stuff that knot back into your piece. And that will be how you create your castle edging. Now we're going to be using that same method for the castle edging throughout this entire piece. Different spires are going to be different sizes. So it'll be slightly larger. Here, I'll show you what I kind of mean. So these middle ones are going to be, we're going to be working on these ones next. They're going to be slightly bigger than these skinny towers, but they're made pretty much the exact same way. And the castle edging around will have a few more little edges, half double crochet edges into each one. So we'll get to that in just a second. I'll teach you how to do it very specifically, but that's basically the gist. Now, you want to make 4 of these, okay? So don't forget, you want to make 4 of these. Okay, so next up, we want to make our large base tower, which is the one at the very bottom, right here, this big bottom one, okay? And this one's pretty easy. It's pretty much made the same way, just a little bit larger. Okay, so we're going to use our gray yarn for that as well. Okay, so for our large base tower, we're going to be doing pretty much the same way. We're going to start with our slip knot. So we're going to go around like that, grab it, hold of it. We're going to go under that first loop, grab hold of the second one, and then grab hold of that yarn and pull through. If you want detailed instructions there, just check out earlier in the video or go to clubcrochet.com/magicloop. I have a tutorial there as well. Okay, so for round 1 and round 2 of the large base tower, it's going to be the same way that you did it for our skinny base tower. So we're going to start by single crocheting 6 into the magic loop. Nice and easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we can just pull this magic loop nice and tight once you have those 6 single crochets. And then to finish round 1, we will slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made right here. There we go. Okay, so for round 2, we're going to chain 1, and starting into the same stitch that you slip stitched into, and working into each single crochet stitch around, we're going to increase into each one. So we're going to start into the one that we just slip stitched into and get a crochet hook into there. We're going to increase. So single crochet 2. 1 and 2. There's 1 There we go. There's our second increase in our fourth stitch. This is going to bring you up from 6 stitches to 12 stitches. Okay. There's 7 and 8, 9, 10, and then 11 and 12. We're going to skip that first slip stitch that you made. We're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet that you made right here to finish up round 2. For round 3, we're going to be increasing up a little bit bigger. So we're going to chain 1, single crochet into the first stitch right here, meaning that same stitch that you slip stitched into. So right like that. Single crochet 1, and then increase into the next one right here. 1 and 2. And we're going to repeat that process of doing a single crochet and then an increase into each stitch all the way around. So we're going to repeat it 6 times all the way. So let's do our second repeat. Single crochet and then increase. Okay, so we're going to keep doing that around. Let's do our third repeat, single crochet and then increase. And this will bring you up from 12 stitches to 18. Here's our fourth repeat, single crochet and then increase, single crochet and then increase. And then here's our last one right here, single crochet and then increase. And we're not going to be working into the slip stitch, okay? Instead, we're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made right here to close the end. Okay, that'll be the end of round 3. And again, you should have 18 stitches around. For round 4, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to make it just a little bit bigger. So we're going to be working into each stitch around, and we're going to do a different repeat here, but pretty much the same thing. We're going to start by single crocheting 2, starting with the same stitch that you slip stitched into. So right here, single crochet 1, and then single crochet 1 into the next. Okay, so that's 2 single crochets and then an increase. Here's our increase. So 2 single crochets and then an increase repeated all the way around. So let's do our next repeat right here. 2 single crochets, 1, 2, and then an increase. Okay, there's our second repeat. We want 6 of those repeats total. 2 single crochets, 1, 2, and then an increase. This will finish up our third repeat. And this will bring you up from 18 stitches to 24 stitches. So you should have 24 stitches by the end of round 4 here. Here's our fourth repeat, then an increase. And you kind of see how it's a very, it's got a very similar feel as the skinny towers, just a little bit bigger. And our medium tower is going to be very similar to this as well. And here's our last repeat, 1, 2, and then an increase. Okay, now to finish up this round, we're going to just slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made to join it. And that will be the end of round 4. For round 5, a lot like our skinny tower, we're going to be starting to work up to make it flat. So to do that, we're going to start by chaining 1 and working into the back loops only of all the stitches that were single crochets from the last round. You're going to work only in the back loops, and we're going to single crochet in each. Now here's the first one right here. You can see this is where we slip stitched into. So normally you'd work under both those loops, but we only want to work under this back loop here. Okay, so only under that back loop, I want to single crochet into each stitch. So there's 1, 2, and there should be 24 stitches all the way around, only working into back loops. And we'll just keep rocking and rolling till we get all the way around. only in the back loops. I have been messing around with how to work only in these back loops recently, trying some different methods so that I could get a flatter top, which I'll probably be working on a video for in the future. So if you're not subscribed to this YouTube channel yet, and you are watching it on YouTube, make sure to subscribe down below, hit the little bell icon so that you can enable notifications for whenever I come out with new videos, and like the video. That will help it come up in other people's feeds so you can spread the joy of crocheting. If you'd like to share this video as well, go for it. Okay, so this is going to be the last stitch right there. And to finish up round 5, we're going to just slip stitch into the first single crochet to join, like that. There you go. Okay, so for rounds 6 through 9, that is 4 rounds total, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 4 rounds in a row. We're just going to be chaining 1, and then single crocheting into each stitch around, not working into that last slip stitch, and then you will slip stitch 1 to join. Okay, so we're just going to single crochet into each stitch, and still there should be 24 stitches around. You're not working into back loops or front loops, you're working into both loops. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat these next 4 rounds of just single crochets, and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so this is going to be our last single crochet right there, and that'll be the end of round 9 in our repeats of single crochet rounds. We can just finish it up by slip stitching into that first stitch that we made. Okay, so for round 10, we're going to be doing something similar. Again, we're going to be closing this guy in for the next 3 rounds. And how we're going to do that is we're going to start with round 10 by chaining 1. And we're going to work only in the back loop, okay, starting with the same stitch that you slip stitch into, working into the back loop only, right there. We're going to single crochet 2, so there's 1, and here is 2, and then we're going to decrease 1, so going into these back loops, and the same kind of decrease as your last bit. We're going to go into that same back loop, pull 1 loop through, go into the next back loop right here, pull a second loop through, and pull that second loop through the 2 on the hook to do a sharp decrease. We're going to repeat that 6 times in a row. Okay, so let's do that again. We're going to single crochet 2, working into the back loops only. 1, 2, and then decrease 1 right here. 1, 2, and then take that second one, pull through the 2 on the hook. So there's our a second repeat. Here's our third repeat. 1, 2, and then decrease. 1, 2, decrease. Okay, just a couple more. And this is going to bring you down from 24 stitches to 18 stitches. So you should have 18 stitches by the end of round 10 here. One, 2, and then our last decrease right here. And then you could just slip stitch to join the round. And that will be the end of round 10. Okay, so for round 11, we're going to chain 1. And this time we can just work into both loops. We don't have to work just into the back loops. And we're going to single crochet 1 into both loops, starting with the same stitch that you slip stitched into. Just single crochet 1 and then decrease 1. So pull 1 loop through, 2 loops through, and then take that second loop and pull through the 2 on the hook. And we're going to repeat that 6 times in a row. So there's 1 and then a decrease, 2. There's our second repeat. Let's keep going around. Single crochet, sharp decrease, single crochet, sharp decrease. And this is going to bring you down from 18 stitches to 12 stitches around. single crochet, sharp decrease, single crochet, sharp decrease to finish that up. And to finish it up, we're just going to slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made. That'll be the end of round 11. Okay, just one more round of this repeat here. Now, before I continue going, I am going to stuff it just the slightest bit. I'm going to use the ends of our last skinny tower to stuff it up too. Just add a little bit more stuffing and kind of limit the amount of waste that you have for this pattern. Okay, so for the last round of our large base tower, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to slip or decrease into each stitch around. Not starting in the slip stitch that you made the round before, and then make sure not to work into that first slip stitch that you made. Okay, so we're going to decrease in each one. So 1 and 2. So there's going to be 6 decreases total. There's 2. And we're working into both loops, not the back or the front. Both loops. Okay, just a few more. 1, 2, 1, 2, and then here's our last one. 1, 2. And there should be 6 stitches around. And if you want to count back, start with the one where our loop is coming out of right here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right there. To close it up, we're going to slip stitch into that first decrease that we made. Okay, so slip stitch into that first one to join it. We can cut the yarn. Again, you don't need to leave too much of an end, just enough to sew it closed. Pull that through. And we want to stuff it up a pretty decent amount so that we have it, because it's a little unstuffed right now. So I'll just take some stuffing, use the back of my crochet hook again, and we're just going to stuff it up. You don't want to stuff it too much because you don't want the ends to be like bulging out. You still want it to have a very flat top and a flat bottom, but you do need to have a little bit of stuffing in there so that it has some density to it. Okay, just a little bit more. We could do a little more stuffing. You can see it's not that much because when I pinch it together, it like completely morphs the shape of our cylinder. Okay, so that's probably enough stuffing. Yeah, that's pretty good. You want some density to it, but again, we don't want it too much. And now let's just sew it closed, and then we can add our edging. Okay, so I'm going to count up. 1, 2, 3. Go up through the top of the 3, then down through our 0. Okay, and then we're just going to go through like that. Come out through somewhere on the back. Doesn't really matter because we're going to go back through it. Pull it tight. Go back through that same hole and come out through the bottom to create a knot. And then we could just cut this nice and close. Now, the last thing we want to do for this large base spire is we want to add our castle edging. And the castle edging is the same way that we did it for the small spires. So we'll grab our main color yarn, make a slip knot with just a smallish end. It's probably fine. We're going to go through that first front loop from the edging at the top of our base tower right here, like that. Yarn over with that slip knot and pull that through. And we're going to chain one. And we're going to repeat this all the way around. So we do our chain one, and then into the next stitch, we want to half double crochet one, chain one, and slip stitch into the same place that you half double crocheted, and then slip stitch two into the next two stitches. There's one slip stitch and two slip stitches. And we're going to repeat that all the way around. You'll have a few more edging than you did last time. So last time you wanted to repeat that 4 times to make these to make this small spire. You only have 4 of them, you see. But for this one, you're going to actually have 8. So let's do our second one. We chain 1, half double crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, slip stitch into the same stitch that you half double crocheted, and then slip stitch 2. 1 and 2. Okay, so you see how we're making these little spire, or these little edging. Let's do one more repeat. Chain 1, half double crochet 1 into the next stitch, chain 1, slip stitch into the same stitch that you half double crocheted into, and slip stitch 2 and 1 into the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. Okay, so we want to do that 8 times around. I'll just keep repeating that, and I'll be back in a sec to show you how to finish up this castle edging. Okay, so here's our last slip stitch into those front loops. We can cut the end here, pull that through, and we're going to finish this just like how we did on our last small tower. What you want to do is you want to thread that end that you just cut onto a needle. Go around the first chain that you made right here, right like that. Rethread this on the needle, it came off. There we go. And we're going to go back into where this end is coming out, back into that, and somewhere inside, and come out a couple stitches lower, like that. And we're going to take this other end, thread that on the needle. We're going to go through the same place that you went through with the other one, into the stitch, and then come out through the same spot. And we can just double knot those on the inside here. So we just knot once and knot twice, and then we can cut it close. Toss those to the side. We can use those for stuffing later, and then we can just use the back of our needle to stuff that knot back into our piece. Now I like to grab these edging like that to kind of pinch them so that they're up more. It's one of the reasons why I like using cotton. It has this kind of moldable system to it. There you go. Now we have our large base tower, and we've got our 4 small base towers, so you can kind of see how it's coming together. All right, next up we want to make our medium tower, which will go on top of this base tower. So for our medium tower, we're going to be doing the same kind of thing. We're going to start with a magic loop, and it's actually going to be the first 3 rounds of this medium tower are going to be the exact same as our large base tower. We're going to single crochet 6 into the magic loop. 1, 2, I'm going to go kind of quick since I've done this before now. 3, 4, oopsies, kind of threaded that end there. 5 and 6. Now we can close this nice and tight. We're going to slip stitch into the first stitch that we made to finish up round 1. There we go. For round 2, we're going to chain 1, work into the same stitch that you slip stitched into, and then increase into each stitch around. 1 and 2. There's our first increase. Again, make sure not to work into the slip stitch at the end of this round, and instead we're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made to join the round. There should be 12 stitches around for round 2 here. One and 2. There we go. That's 12 stitches around. I'm going to pull this a little tighter to close that top just a little bit better. Okay. And we can just slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made. For round 3, we're going to chain 1. Starting in the same place we slip stitched, we're going to single crochet 1 and then increase into the next. 2 and 3. We're going to repeat that process of a single crochet and then an increase 6 times in a row. So let's do our second repeat. Single crochet and then increase. Okay, let's keep going. Single crochet and then increase. Get a little bit more yarn. Single crochet, and remember not to work into the last slip stitch in this round. And by the end of this round, you should have 18 stitches around. So you had 12 stitches, now we're going up to 18. And you can see how this is the exact same way that we made the first 3 rounds into the large base tower. Okay, so there is our 18 single crochets. We'll slip stitch into that first one that we made right here. And that'll be the end of round 3. For round 4, we're going to start doing our height to our little spire here. We're going to chain 1. Working into the same stitch that you slip stitched into, we're going to single crochet. But we're going to work only into the back loops like before. Okay, so we want to work only in these back loops. Starting in that first stitch that we slip stitched into, single crochet only in these back loops. There's 2, 3, and there should be 18 single crochets total. 4, 5, 6, and you can see how this is going to be very similar to the other ones, except for in this medium tower, we actually don't have to make the ends where we're decreasing down, because this is going to be sewn directly onto the base tower, the large base tower. So you actually don't need to do the last few rounds, because you don't really need it to be closed in on the bottom. Okay, so this will be 17 stitches, and here's our 18th. We could slip stitch into the first stitch right here to join the round. And then for our next 3 rounds, that's rounds 5, 6, and 7, 3 rounds in a row, you just want to chain 1 and single crochet into each stitch around, starting in the same stitch that you worked into with the slip stitch right here. 1, 2, and we're working into both loops now. And you want to single crochet into each stitch around and then join with a slip stitch at the end of the round. And we want to repeat that this round 3 times in a row. So there's rounds 5, 6, and 7 are all the exact same way. Just like how we did on our other towers, we're just adding height to our little tower here. Okay, so we're almost at the end of round 5, our first round of our 3 rounds of repeat single crochets. Okay, here's our last stitch right here. And as we've been doing this whole time, we're going to skip that last slip stitch and slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made to join the round. And we're going to repeat that round 2 more times. So now I'm on to round 6. So I'll go ahead and do these 2 rounds, and then I'll show you how we can put this all together. Okay, and this is going to be our last stitch in round 7. Now we can slip stitch into the last one, to join it. And we can actually cut the yarn now. You want to kind of leave a little bit of a long-ish end, like about that. Looks like about a foot or 2 feet. Cut the end there. And we're just going to pull this all the way through. And we're going to use this end to sew it onto the main base tower. And we want to sew it onto the large base tower before we add our edging around it. So we're going to grab our large base tower right here. We're going to take this middle thread and we're going to thread that onto our needle. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that straight into the middle of our large base tower. And we're going to come out, let's see, right here on the side like that. This will kind of keep it into place as we sew it around. Okay, now we can thread the other end here. And I'll show you how we're going to sew this on. So this is our long tail end. And what you need to do is we're going to be working into this round. Okay, so working into the round prior to like not all the way up to the edging, but the round before the edging, like into this round here. There should be a stitch for each stitch in our medium tower. So we're going to go into that first one right here, come out through the next one like that. And then on our base tower here, we're going to go into the back of our first stitch and then back into where we're coming out on the large base tower and come out through the next stitch on the large base tower. We're going to keep doing that all the way around. You do want to stuff this before you get to the end though. So again, we're going to go into the next stitch on the medium tower, into the same stitch coming out of on the large base tower, and out through the next stitch on the large base tower. Next stitch on the medium tower, same stitch on large base tower, next stitch on large base tower. And you see how there's going to be one of these for each stitch. When you get to about 15 stitches around, almost to the end, that's when you want to try stuffing up your medium tower, but we'll get there in just a second. Normally I really don't like sewing pieces together, but I do have to say there's something very satisfying about sewing together these towers, because it's very specific. There's a stitch for each. There's a stitch for each one, you know, so it's just going to be perfectly sewn together, and there's not really a lot of wiggle room. A lot of times when I'm sewing together amigurumi, it's not really clear exactly where you want to sew certain pieces together, because it's just complicated. But this one works perfectly together so that you don't have to worry about that. They're going to be a stitch for each part when you're sewing it together. All right, so we're coming around to the end. And now I've got a few more stitches left, and I've just got enough room so I can stuff it up a little bit. We want to take our stuffing here. We're just going to go ahead and put that stuffing in there. You don't need too much, just enough so it holds its shape, but not too much so that it bulges out. That actually, we can do a little bit more. We want to kind of match the stuffing of the large base tower. Match that density. That's probably good. We might have stuffed it a little too much, but that's okay. All right, let's keep going around here. If you have any questions as I'm going through this, feel free to ask me in the comments below. I always check the comments, so I'll try to respond to every comment that is put on this video with as much help as possible. Okay, and we just got one more stitch. We go into this last stitch right here, go into our stitch that we're coming out of, we're actually going to come out through the same place that we started with this yarn and go down through that last slip stitch that we have into our body, and then come out through the same place as you're coming out with the other tail end. And now we can double knot these two tail ends. There's one. And two. Oopsies, almost pulled it so tight that I broke it. And then you just want to cut it close. Throw this to the side. And then we can just use this tail, the back of our needle to stuff that knot back into our piece. There we go. Now we have our medium tower sewn onto our large base tower. Now the next thing you want to do for this medium tower is we want to add our edging around it. So just like the previous ones, we want to make a slip knot with our yarn. Go into the first front loop right here. You can see it's like, it looks a little bit different than the other ones. Pull that slip knot tight, pull that through, and we're going to do the same kind of repeat that we've been doing for all of the edging, which is to chain one, half double crochet into the next front loop right here, half double crochet one to that, then chain one again, slip stitch into the same stitch that you half double crocheted into, and then slip stitch two. So one and two. Okay, and we're going to repeat that again. Chain one, half double crochet one into the next right here, chain one, slip stitch into the same place you're half double crocheting, and then slip stitch two. So there's one and two. Get a little bit more yarn here. And there should be 6 repeats total for these, the edging for this medium tower. So here's our third repeat, half double crochet, chain one, slip stitch into the same place you half double crocheted, and then slip stitch two. One and two. Chain one, half double crochet one into the next, chain one, slip stitch into the same place you half double crocheted, then slip stitch two. One, two. Again, chain one, half double crochet, chain one, slip stitch into the same place, slip stitch two. One, two. Here's our last one, chain one, half double crochet into the same, or into the next stitch, chain one, slip stitch into the same stitch you're half double crocheted into, and then slip stitch two. One and two. Now we can cut the yarn. You don't need a very long end there. Just pull that through, and then just like the other ones, we're going to hide this around the next stitch. So we're going to thread that onto a needle, go into the first chain that you made right there, to the back of the first chain. Then we want to go back into where that little end is coming out of, right there. Hide it into the back of a few stitches, and then come out somewhere on the side. Pull that tight-ish. Then we can take this other tail end, thread it on a needle, and go into the same area and out through the exact same stitch where we can double knot it and stuff it back in. There's one double knot, or knot, and there's two knots to make a double knot. There we go. And then we could just cut the ends close, throw that to the side. We'll take the tail, or the back of our needle, and just stuff that back into our piece. Okay, so now we've got our medium tower sewn onto our large base tower. And the last thing we want to that we need to actually crochet before we attach everything together is we want to make a topmost peak. So just this little peak at the very top of it. Pretty easy to make. I'm going to be making mine red or blue in this because I already have a red castle, and I think it'd be kind of fun to have a blue one as well. So all you need to do for that is we're going to start with a magic loop, 1 and 2. I'm going to just power through the magic loop here since I've taught it a bunch of times already. Okay, so for our topmost peak, we want to single crochet 4 times into this magic loop. Okay, so not 6 like we've been doing before, but 4 times. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now we can pull this magic loop nice and tight. Don't cut this tail end. We're going to need it for sewing onto the medium tower. And we want to slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made, just like we've been doing for this entire piece, to finish up round 1. Okay, so for round 2, we're going to chain 1, and starting into the same stitch that you made in the first part right there, we're going to single crochet 1 into that first stitch, and then increase into the next. Okay, so we're going to do a single crochet and then an increase, and now let's repeat that one more time. So single crochet, get a little bit more yarn, and then increase into the next right here. Now you should have 6 stitches around, so you went up from 4 stitches in round 1 to 6 stitches in round 2. Now there's our last slip stitch right here, so we want to skip that slip stitch, and we want to actually get our crochet hook into the first single crochet that we made right here, yarn over, and then slip stitch into that one to finish up round 2. For round 3, you can kind of see what's going on here. We're going to just slowly be getting bigger. We're going to chain 1, single crochet into the next 2 stitches, so there's 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, and then increase into the 3rd stitch. And there's 3 and 4. Okay, so 2 single crochets and then an increase, and we're going to repeat that one more time. 2 single crochets, 1, 2, and then an increase right here. 3 and 4. And that should be 8 stitches around. To finish up round 3 here, we want to just slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made. Here we go. See how our spire's kind of growing slowly but surely. Now for round 4, we're going to chain 1. We're going to single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So we did 2 last round. This time we're doing 3. So we got 1, 2, and 3, and then increase into the 4th. 4 and 5. And we're going to repeat that one more time. 1, 2, 3 single crochets, and then an increase. 4 and 5. Okay, last round, we're going to slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made to join the round. Okay, so now for our last round, round 5, we want to chain 1, and we're going to increase up one more time, single crochet 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then increase 1. 5 and 6. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that one more time. That's going to bring you up from 10 stitches to 12 stitches. So you should have 12 stitches by the end of round 5 here, which is actually our last round. So we got 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then an increase. 5 and 6. To finish up our topmost spire, we're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made in that round. We can cut the yarn, leaving enough to sew onto the top. We're going to pull that all the way through. And now we're just going to sew this onto our little middle castle part. And it's going to be sewn on the same way as we did sew on the middle to our large base. Okay, so we're going to thread the middle of this topmost peak, go in through the very center of our medium tower and out through somewhere on the side. Thread the end of our topmost peak like that, and we're going to go out through each stitch around, just like before, one round before the edging. Okay, so just one round before the edging, right here to right there. We're going to go pull through that, go in through the next stitch of our topmost peak, and then back into where we came out of our medium tower, and then out through the next stitch in our medium tower. And we're just going to keep doing that all the way around. Don't forget to sew it together and to pull it tight. So next stitch in our peak, same stitch in our tower, out through the next stitch in our tower. Next stitch in our peak, same stitch in the medium tower, out the next stitch in the medium tower. Peak, tower, tower. Keep going. Peak, tower, tower. About halfway through. Peak, tower, and tower. Okay, just a few more. Peak, tower, and tower. And then we're almost done here, but we need to stuff this up just a little tiny bit. You definitely don't want to stuff too much. You don't need very much here. It's probably enough. Just go ahead and stuff that in. See that? I think we're kind of pushing it here. We're close to too much stuffing there. It's close. We're good, but it's close. And then down through the next stitch of the tower. Same on the medium. Okay, peak, tower, tower. And our last bit, peak, tower, tower. And then peak, tower, and then we come out through the same stitch that you came out for the other tail end. And then we could just double knot these two ends. Let's get that fuzz out of the way. 1 and 2, tie it tight, and then cut. Take the back of your needle and just stuff our end back in there. Get all this out of the way. And there we go. Now we have our medium tower made, and now we can just attach our skinny towers. Let's get all our skinny towers in here. I'm going to be doing 4 skinny towers, but again, you could just do 2 if you want to just have 1 on either side, like that. The written instructions include how to do if you want to just do 2 of these skinny towers attached to the main tower, but I'm going to be teaching you how to do 4. Again, the written instructions include both how to do 2 and how to do 4. So no worries. If you're on page 5 of the PDF, it teaches you how to do the 4 skinny towers. So that's what we're going to be working on this part of the pattern. Okay, so to attach everything together, you need to grab our gray yarn. And we're going to make a slip stitch or slip knot with our gray yarn. We're going to take one of our skinny towers and we want to attach into the first one that we made on the bottom of our skinny tower. So if you look at the bottom of our skinny tower, look at the first back loop that you made. It should be like right there. Kind of hard to get in there. Like that. There we go. Okay, so we're going to work only into these front loops. We're going to pull our end, our slip knot, through that first one, and we can chain 1, and we can single crochet into the next, into 8 stitches on this this small tower. So we go 1, 2, make sure to get under all of the loops there, or all of the front loop. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so 8 loops on the skinny tower. Now we can take our big base tower, hold it upside down, reach over, and we're going to single crochet into 8 stitches on the back loops of this base tower. I'm going to start right where the end is, right here. Okay, so I just get my crochet hook into one of the loops on the bottom of this tower and yarn over, single crochet into that. So there's 1. See how it's going to be attached like that? Now we want to single crochet 8 stitches on this base tower, on the bottom of this base tower. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 on our base tower. See how it's coming together. See, so it's going to be going like that. Now we can take another one of our skinny towers, go into the bottom of the skinny tower here, and we're going to single crochet 11 into the skinny towers, into the next skinny tower. Okay, so put your crochet hook into the base of the next skinny tower, and working into these back loops, we're going to single crochet 1, 11 times, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay. There we go. Now grab another one of these base towers, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go into the next loop on the base, on the skinny tower. Crochet hook into that back loop. And we're going to do 11 more into this next one too. 1, we're almost done, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and here is 11 on our next skinny tower. Okay, now we want to go on to our big base tower, and we want to skip 4 stitches on this base tower. Okay, so here's where our last one was. I want to skip 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to the 5th one right here, we want to start our single crochets. Okay, and we want to do 8 more single crochets into the base tower. Make sure that this end doesn't get all tangled up the way it kind of is right now. There we go. So let's count again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's our 5th. We want to do 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost done, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, last skinny tower, we want to do 11. Okay, so go into the back loop of the next skinny tower here. Reach over, oops, pull through, make sure it's kind of tightish, and then we'll do 11 in this skinny tower. 1, 2, almost done, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, now we want to skip we want to reach over to our first tower and single crochet into the remaining 3 stitches. Okay, so we're going to count over, there should be 3 stitches remaining. So, and I'm going to count this last one. So we got 1, 2, and 3. So let's start right here, and we'll do 1 to make it back to the start, 2, and here is 3. Okay, now to finish this up, I'm going to slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made right here to join, like that, and we can cut the yarn and pull that through. Okay, now we want to hide this end, thread that on the needle. We're going to go into the back of the next single crochet onto the first base tower right here, and go back in through where that's coming out, and go in through somewhere on the body, come out somewhere on the base, right, like that. We're just kind of trying to mimic that end to make a hidden end. And then we're going to take this end, thread that on the needle, and go back in our piece, come out through the same stitch, like so. And we can double knot these guys. 1 and 2. Cut the end. And then take our take the back of our needle and just stuff that into our piece. Okay. So the last thing we want to do now is, you can see it's kind of like wibbly wobbly. So what we want to do is we need to sew the bottom of our piece together so that this doesn't get so wibbly wobbly anymore. So we're going to sew our, just do a little bit of sewing for our base here. So we want to grab a little bit extra of our gray yarn. So we'll grab the rest of our gray yarn here, thread it on a needle. And what we're going to do is we're going to come out through, or go in through the bottom. And we're going to come out through one of these base stitches right here. And we're going to sew these base stitches to the base stitches here. Okay, so we're just going to come out, pull almost all the way through till you just have a little bit more left over to double knot at the end. We're going to go around the extra back loops on the base, and then around the back loops, or on the base of the skinny tower, and then on the base of the big tower as well. So we're going to go like that. One, next one, next one, like so. And then we're going to skip over to these ones. Back loop, back loop. This is just going to close these gaps and help us sew it on. Back loop and back loop. And now what we want to do is we want to go back in to the bottom of our base tower, and we want to sew these onto the base so that they're not so wibbly wobbly like that. So how we'll do that is we'll come out through the side of our base tower like so, and we'll go in through the side of our skinny towers, and then we're going to sew both these skinny towers together like that. Okay. Okay. Then we're going to go back into our big base tower, and we're going to use this as an opportunity to also embroider on the front of our base tower. We're going to make a little design on the front. So let me show you what I mean there. So you can kind of see it just barely right there. Just like a little bit of design embroidery work. Okay, so we're just going to come out just as we're going through, and this will help us get across to the next piece as well. Keep it threaded on our needle, it keeps coming off. There we go. Okay, so we're just going to go over a few stitches, like right, make sure it looks a little centered. Go over like to there. And I'm basically just embroidering on a triangle. Like so. Back down, and then we're going to do the same over here. We're going to come out through the base. We'll flip it upside down like this. And we're going to sew these base ones to the next one. Okay, so just skinny tower base to the big tower base. One. Two. Three. 4, Okay, go back into our base, and we're going to sew on these two ends, or these skinny towers, to the big tower as well, just like we did before. So we're just going to come out somewhere on the side of the skinny, or on the big base tower. And we're going to go in through the side of one of our skinny towers. Just make sure it's equal. Yeah. So the side of our skinny tower, come out of our skinny tower, go into our next skinny tower. Try to make them equal. Like that. Then we're going to go back into our big base tower. And I don't need to embroider any more on this front. You can if you want to, but I'm going to be covering this side up with a drawbridge. So I'm actually not going to cover that up because there's not really any point. I'm just going to cover up my embroidery anyhow. And I'm just going to come out all the way across to where the first end is sticking out like that. You can also add some embroidery to each of these small towers if you want, which is something that I did on my, there we go, something that I did on my sandcastle one. I tried to embroider little windows because we're not going to be adding any what's it called? Drawbridge on a sandcastle one. We're only going to be adding drawbridge onto a regular castle one. So I figured let's add a little bit of extra embroidery into the windows of the skinny towers. So we're going to double knot that on the inside. Cut the end. Pull that little end out there. Just poke that in there. Okay, so now our castle is sewn together. You can see it's like pretty solid. Let's make sure all of our edging is poked up like that. All right. And the next thing I want to do is add a drawbridge. So we're going to need to crochet our drawbridge actually. So we're going to take that to the side and we're going to grab some brown yarn. And as I said before, this part is completely not necessary for a for really any of the castles. This is completely optional, but definitely not if you're going to do a sand castle. I would not add a drawbridge because it just wouldn't look right. So we're going to start with our brown yarn here. You want a little bit of an end, like leave a bit of a long tail there, and we're going to make a slip knot like that. Okay. Now, using our brown yarn, we want to chain 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Now, we want to skip our first chain and we want to single crochet into the remaining 5 chains on the hook. So we're just going to single crochet all the way across. Skipping our first chain, we want a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Now that's the end of row 1. For row 2 and 3, we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to turn our piece, chain 1, and single crochet into all the single crochets that we made in our previous round. We want to work under both these loops. Okay, so single crochet 5. So there's 1, 2, a little bit extra brown yarn, 3, 4, and here is our 5th one right here. Boop. Okay, so that's the end of row 2. For row 3, we're going to do that again. So we're going to turn, chain 1, and single crochet into these both loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, and here is our 5th. And for our last row of our drawbridge, we want to turn. We do not chain for our last row. We want to skip our first stitch right here, and we want to single crochet 1 into the next. So skip the first stitch, single crochet 1, and then half double crochet 1. So we yarn over, go into the next stitch right here, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. So it's half double crochet, so it's a little taller. And then single crochet 1 more right here. And to finish up, we want to slip stitch into this last one right here. Okay, that'll create just this little tiny drawbridge. Now we can cut the yarn, pull through, and we want to just hide this end in. We can actually hide it down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the back of our rows. We're going to hide it all the way down till we get to the base of our drawbridge, like that. Okay, now we want to sew this onto the front of our piece, like that. Okay, and I'm going to do something fancy so that we can make this drawbridge actually open and close. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our first tail end right here, thread that on our needle, and we'll go into the front of our castle. I'm using the side that I did not embroider on, and I'm just going to go in through the base of the stitches here, in through 1, oopsies, there we go, and then I want to go in through the chain just to sew on the base of our drawbridge onto the base of our castle. And you only want to sew on the bottom of your drawbridge. Okay, almost there. One more. And I'm just going to come out somewhere on the bottom. And I'm going to take our other tail end right here, thread that on our needle. I'm going to enter a stitch just to the right, and we're going to come out through the same stitch on the bottom. That way we can double knot these two together. Okay, try not to pull it too tight. See, our little drawbridge is sewn on a little bit. Just the bottom of our drawbridge is sewn on. Now we can just double knot these two ends, and I'll show you how to make it so you can open and close this drawbridge. Here we go. Go 1 and 2. Oops. I actually pulled it so tight that I cut it, but that's fine because we needed to cut it anyhow. And we could just push that knot into our piece. Okay, and the last bit for our drawbridge that we want to do is we want to thread a little bit extra of our, or grab a little bit extra of our brown yarn, cut an end, throw that on a needle, and we want to come through the back of our castle, like just through a stitch on the back of our castle between the medium tower and the large tower right here, the very base of it. We want to go all the way across to where our drawbridge is, come out through one side of our drawbridge, like that, and then hide the end. I'm going to go around it and then hide the end into our drawbridge stitches. So I'm just going to like kind of just hide it till I go across to the other side of the drawbridge. Okay, so I'm just basically hiding it into some stitches. There we go, like that. Had a hard time coming through that one. There we go though. Okay. Let's thread it back on the needle because I lost it. There we go. I'm just going to go around it, back through like that. And then I'm going to go back into our castle in through the same row. Make sure that they're in the same row. I'm going to come out through a stitch just next to where we went into. So like that. See how it's not the same stitch, but they're right next to each other. And here's how you want to do this part. So now we have these two ends coming out through the top. Now if you pull it tight, it'll keep our piece closed. But what we want to do is we want to open our drawbridge till it's flat, like that. Keep it flattened. And we want to double knot it on the back where it's flat. Okay, so we want to double knot it to that length. Try not to pull these tight. Try to just double knot it so that you don't pull it too tight there. Like that. And cut it a little bit close. You can leave a little bit of an end like that. And then we could just grab this little end. Here's our drawbridge. Grab this little end and pull it, and it'll close our drawbridge. And I just like to hide that into between the edging and the end there. You can pull it tight so that the drawbridge is always closed if you want, but I think it's kind of fun to have that little end. And the last thing that we want to do for our castle, the very last bit, is we need to add our little flag at the top. So what I like to do is take some felt in the same color that you made our top spire, and we want to cut just the smallest little triangle, like that. This one right here. And we want to take a pin and go in through the top of our triangle and then back out through the base, the bottom of our triangle, like that. And then just take this and poke it right into the top of our castle. And we have a little flag. And that is going to be how you crochet a castle. Quite a tutorial, if you ask me. Again, if you like this pattern, you should check out more of Ravencraft designs by checking out the links in the description below. Or check out more club crochet patterns. You might like the goblinoid patterns, which are great for our game Stitched. It's a tabletop game that you crochet all your pieces for. And yeah, I have a bunch of little, let me show you one. Little goblins. Here's what the goblins kind of look like. I'm actually working on how to incorporate this castle into the game Stitched so that it's another little version of the game. If you like those, yeah, check out more patterns. You can check out our whole Club Crochet library by going to clubcrochet.com/browse, or you can find the link by just going to clubcrochet.com. There's a whole bunch of crochet patterns there, and you can get access to all of them by becoming a Club Crochet member. Members get access to the full Club Crochet library, which includes a bunch of tutorials like little dinosaurs, all those goblin patterns. There's early rough draft patterns like little octopi and a giant bonsai tree. Bunch of tutorials just like this. Every single tutorial on the website includes a full video just like this video here. Here's our red castle. So now we got a red castle and a blue castle, which will of course be battling it out. Okay, well, that's enough for me. Thank you guys so much again for watching. Pasta la pizza and happy hooking. I'll have this cigar smoking goblin say goodbye. See you later, stinkers. Bye. Thanks for watching.